This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
We have got a jam-packed week ahead in the sports world because we have, of course, the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs continuing. We'll talk about that Wednesday with Tom Vecchio. Tomorrow, we're talking about the PGA Championship with Brandon Gadula, which should be a lot of fun. Second major of the year. We've got the Preakness Stakes coming up this week. Todd Schrupp of FanDuel TV will join us on Thursday to break down that. So, didn't have a lot of time to talk baseball anywhere in that schedule, so I wanted to jam that in for today to get some baseball in there before all the craziness begins later on this week. So today we're breaking down my favorite bets across Monday's MLB slate at FanDuel Sportsbook and letting you know where I see value, talking a same game parlay, a dinger prop, and some money lines and totals for tonight. So let's dive on in and get you ready for Monday's MLB slate. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, here to break down Monday's MLB betting slate, letting you know my favorite bets at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. We'll dive into all that here in just 1 second. But first, the NBA playoffs have tipped off, but it's not too late to get in on the action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to use on same-game parlays, live bets, championship futures, and so much more. There is no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Not available in North Carolina. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, DC, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Vermont, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700 visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana, visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-OPEN-Y or text OPEN-Y in New York. Let's take a look now at the MLB betting slate for tonight over at FanDuel Sportsbook and let you know where I see value for today. Let's begin things by talking about a same-game parlay I like for tonight between the Pirates and the Brewers. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, the Brewers money line is at -142. That'll be the first leg we're going to add here because I do show value in that individually, and it does play well with some other stuff we'll talk about later on. I think the Brewers undervalued to win this game. The implied odds at -142 are 59%, and I have the Brewers at 62% to win this game. And a lot of that value comes from this Brewers offense because we came into this year, I think collectively, with low expectations of this offense, but they've been cooking so far. They have a 121 WRC plus. That's a pretty potent number for a team that has some pretty good components elsewhere. Now, that number could come down given the low expectations. Those expectations do still matter, but a lot of their hitters who are hitting well have good underlying numbers as well. That's why I'm high on the Brewers money line here, and that's why my model likes the Brewers money line. It is not because of their starter, Colin Ray. Ray has made 7 starts. He has a 4.79 skill interactive ERA with a 15% strikeout rate. My model likes the Brewers, despite the fact it does not view their starter in a super favorable light. So that's why I think we can add actually an uncorrelated bet to this same game parlay. Colin Ray's strikeout prop at FanDuel Sportsbook is 4.5 with the under at -124. Now, typically, when we're talking same game parlays, we discuss how we want them to have good synergy, to play well together, and things like that. And if Ray goes under his strikeout prop, that does tend to imply the Brewers have lower win odds because strikeouts are good. We want more strikeouts. So these two bets are uncorrelated, but FanDuel Sportsbook knows that. So we're not paying as heavy of a tax to parlay these two things together, given that FanDuel knows they're not correlated. So we're actually getting a bit of relief because of the fact that these two bets are not correlated. As for why I want this strikeout prop individually in there, Ray, not a big strikeout guy. Again, 15% mark for him so far this year. The Pirates offense, also not a massive strikeout team. They're at 23.8%, so above average. And it is a good park for strikeouts as well at American Family Field, but not enough to the point where I see value in the over. I've got Ray projected for 4.27 strikeouts, so under 4.5, plus 124, a good play individually. And again, because my model does not view him super favorably, I think that's enticing where we can bet the under and still not feel like we're working against our money line here with the Brewers. The money line in my model kind of already assumes that Ray is not the best starter on the planet, but it can also lead to an over. And that's why I think we could add a third leg to this same game parlay. Both the Ray strikeout prop and the Brewers money line, because it revolves around the Brewers offense, lend themselves towards the over in this game. Total is at 8 runs. The over is minus 114, and I think that's a good bet individually as well. Going back to the genesis of this entire thought process is, okay, the Brewers offense is very good. That's going to lend itself towards the money line, but it plays well towards the over. The Colin Ray strikeout prop is in under. That correlates well towards the over as well. So while the money line and the strikeout prop don't necessarily play well together, they both play well with the over here at 8 runs. And I think that's why we can add this third leg in. The over and the money line also work well together because the Pirates defense is one of the worst in baseball this year, and that does matter quite a bit. Neither bullpen has been lights out so far, so we've got good paths to all three of these bets hitting. So you'll hear me talk a lot on this show about how we want to make sure our bets have synergy if we're doing a same game parlay, because we need all three legs to hit simultaneously. Here, I think we get that, even though two of them may not look like they definitely do not correlate well with the Brewers money line, the Ray under. But if we pair all three of these together, that gets us to plus 551 as our same game parlay over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And I think this is a pretty solid way to play this game. So we're going to go with the Brewers money line, Colin Ray under 4.5 strikeouts, and the over for this game at 8 runs as a plus 551 same game parlay at FanDuel Sportsbook. It is a bit different from how we typically play things here as far as an SGP, but I think in this specific instance, I'm very okay with it. So we'll go with that as our first bet of the night across Major League Baseball. Did have one dinger prop that I like for tonight, and that's going to be in the Cardinals versus Angels. The Cardinals doing kind of a bullpen game for tonight. They're going to start things off with Matthew Liberatore, who is a lefty, and he's not going to be out there super, super long, but I do think we can turn towards Joe Adell for a home run. Now, this is shortened quite a bit from where it was this morning. Adell was plus 680 this morning to go deep, and he's now down to 6-1. So the implied odds 6-1, 14.3%. That is a bit different, or quite a bit different from plus 650 at 13.3%. But I still think there is value in Adell at this number at 6-1, because Adell seems to be entering a breakout year where he's had this hype his entire life, but whenever he's gotten the big leagues, he's had a struggle. This year is very different. And I'm not talking about the results. I'm talking about the underlying data that stabilizes more quickly. All says that Adell is a different batter this year than he has been in the past. He has a 417 expected WOBA. He has a 15.7% barrel rate with a 47% hard hit rate. Those are all superstar level numbers before you consider the fact that he has speed too. And it's already led to 7 home runs for Adell this year, which is almost a career high. His career high is 8. So if we catch this bet, he is getting to his career high tonight. So I think those factors line up well, where it's a guy who has a lot of talent and we're seeing him break out. I'm willing to buy into a breakout in a guy who has this prospect pedigree and has the underlying data to back it up. And we get that with Adell here. Again, they're facing Matthew Liberatore first. Liberatore is a lefty who struggled with hard contact. He does get some ground balls, but not too many to nullify anything here. It will go to the bullpen after that. The bullpen is very, very good, and I don't really want to go at this Cardinals bullpen, but you are forcing them to be stretched further out because they have to work longer stints during this game. So it's kind of a combination of things where you're getting to bet against Liberatore as a lefty for the short sample he's in there. And then you're betting against a Cardinals bullpen that is very good, but has to work in longer stints than they typically would because this is effectively a bullpen game. I think that adds up well enough to make Adele a quality value. Again, down to 6-1 right now, so not as much value as there was before, but I do still like it. So we'll take Joe Adele to hit a dinger that is 6-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook for today. Want to dive into the money lines I like for tonight right now. Let's start things off with the A's and the Astros. And, I'm not fully bought into the A's just yet, but I buy into them enough to take them a plus 150 to win this game against the Astros outright because the A's are playing well, and it's not just the bullpen. The bullpen has gotten all the headlines so far, but the A's offense has also been pretty okay. They have a 117 WRC plus overall and a 119 WRC plus on their active roster against righties. They'll face a righty tonight with Spencer Arrighetti starting for the Astros. Ross Stripling is starting for the A's, and I'm pretty skeptical of him personally, but the underlying numbers are better than what his results have been, specifically because Stripling is doing a good job of suppressing hard contact. And that might not stick, but those numbers tend to stabilize more quickly than some other numbers, and then the results would at least. And Stripling has excelled there, so maybe he can keep that going. And even if he's just okay, he can pass the ball off to that elite bullpen and hopefully get the A's over the hump here. The A's offense facing Spencer Arrighetti, who has a 4.42 skill interactive ERA in 5 starts. He's looked better recently. His past couple starts have been very good, but not some shutdown ace right now we truly need to fear. So I think the A's can do some work here, and the Astros are going to be able to bounce back soon. I want to buy into them eventually, but I don't think this is the right spot to do so. So we're going to take the A's money line plus 150 at FanDuel Sportsbook as a way to buy into this A's offense and hopefully get into the Astros later on, but not for tonight specifically. If you do want to buy into the Astros, I think you could do so via the over. Right now, 8.5 runs. Over is minus 115 at FanDuel Sportsbook. And I talked about the A's offense, but the Astros have been pretty good too. They have a 114 WRC plus against righties. Neither defense here is very good. Neither starter has a shutdown arm. So I have this total at 9.07. Over 8.5 is minus 114. I don't mind taking that route, but we talked about the same game parlay with the Brewers game before. I prefer to play this one straight, taking the A's money line and the over individually, because it could go over because Stripling gets shelled, and I want to keep that in mind. If you wanted to go same game parlay here, the combined odds are plus 307. That's fine. I just would prefer to play them straight personally to benefit should the A's win this game and get a bit of a hedge in case Stripling does struggle. Because to me, that's the main path to the A's losing this game is Stripling getting shelled by this Astros offense. So individually, like the A's plus 150 and the over at 8.5 at minus 115, we want to play those two individually for myself personally. The final bet that I like for tonight is going to be on the Cincinnati Reds. Their money line right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, shortening a bit. It's down to plus 124. I still see value at that number. So gonna take the Reds to win this game. That is plus 124 at FanDuel Sportsbook. They're facing Arizona, and I don't get to buy into the Reds super often because they're a very fun team and people like the Reds, which I do too, but can often lead to somewhat inflated lines, and we're not getting that here. The Reds are starting Graham Ashcraft, who has looked like his old self so far this year with a 4.05 skill interactive ERA, getting ground balls. Bit too much hard contact, but when you account for that, his expected ERA is 4.13. The bigger reason I'm on the Reds tonight, though, is Jordan Montgomery. Now, Montgomery faced the Reds last week. He was awesome against them. 7 innings, 7 hits, only 2 earned runs. He was really good. And that was in Cincinnati, a much tougher assignment than being at home in Arizona for tonight. But the underlying numbers on Montgomery are pretty concerning. And it does go back to that Reds game too. Just 2 strikeouts there. And he hasn't gotten many strikeouts at all this year, not getting whiffs. And to me, I want to be skeptical of Montgomery, despite the fact he played well against the Reds last week. His overall tenure at Arizona has been concerning, I would say. And I want to see him get back to his old form coming off that long layoff before I buy back in. So yes, Montgomery did shut down the Reds last week, but his overall form, some of the underlying numbers, a bit more concerning, and I'm okay betting against him until he gives me a more firm reason not to do so. Now, it's also the same dynamic where the Reds just saw Montgomery. That also means the Diamondbacks just saw Ashcraft as well, so we're not benefiting there. But I think that given I prefer the overall form of Ashcraft right now to the overall form of Montgomery, I'm okay buying into the Reds. So we're getting a plus 124 right now. I view this as more as a toss-up personally. Like the Reds bullpen more than the Diamondbacks. That does help them too. Reds offense is not great against lefties by any means, so that could be a downfall here, but I do think there is value in the Reds. So like the Reds, plus 124 on their money line for tonight. So recommendations for baseball for tonight, the Reds money line plus 128. I like the A's and Astros over 8.5 runs at minus 115. Like the A's money line at plus 150. Like Joe Adell to hit a homer. He is 6-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. And then the same game parlay of the Brewers money line, Colin Ray under 4.5 strikeouts and over 8 runs. That is plus 551 for today, all over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Before we close up for today, got to go back through recommendations from last week here on the show. Let's start things off with Austin Cass, our EPL guy. He was on here on Friday to break down EPL Match Week 37. Find Austin on Twitter at Austin Cass and check out his work over at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior editor. First one for Austin was in the Sunday game. That was Arsenal versus Manchester United. He had under 1.5 goals in the first half at minus 128. This game went under for the entire game, under that total for the entire game. A 1-0 final in this one. So easy win for Austin there with Arsenal, Man United under 1.5 goals at minus 128. Other traditional market was for Crystal Palace versus Wolves. Austin had that game under 2.5 goals at plus 103. And Crystal Palace won this one 3-1. So did go over. Crystal Palace has been white hot recently. And they continued that here. So another one for Crystal Palace, but a loss there at the bet under 2.5 goals, plus 103. Final one was another winner. That was Mohamed Kudus to score assist at plus 105. That was for West Ham versus Luton. And Kudus did get an assist. Wanted to wait to see if Kudus would start in that game, and he did. Kudus started. He got the assist, and so you cash that one at plus 105. So a 2-1 week for Austin. Check him out on Twitter at Austin Cass. We'll get him back here again as the EPL season winds down to get some more recommendations from him as well. I talked NASCAR in Darlington on Friday as well. Had 4 recommendations, or maybe 5, depending on how you want to classify them. First one's in the Trek Series on Friday night. Had Tyler Ankrum 28-1 to win the race, and Ankrum was okay during the race, then got caught up in an incident. He was not going to win regardless. It was going to be basically someone else. So Ankrum was not really in contention, but so didn't get that one at 28-1. On Saturday in the Xfinity Series, I had Riley Herbst at 20-1 to win the race. And Herbst, again, was like, okay, definitely not lights out by any means. Finished 7th, so he ran okay, but was not in contention. Didn't get to qualify or practice. Not sure if that impacted him more than others. I would doubt it. So couldn't get Herbst 20-1 either. For the Cup Series on Sunday, had 3-ish recommendations. First one's a ladder on Michael McDowell, top 10 at plus 450 and top 5 at 16-1. And then Corey LaJoie top 10 at 12-1. And LaJoie one did not hit. He ran okay, ran in the upper teens towards the end. So didn't get that one, but we did get McDowell inside the top 10. Maybe didn't deserve it. He didn't really run there the entire day, but there was an incident towards the end where the 2 leaders, Tyler Reddick and Chris Buescher, wrecked into each other, and they both had to pit. So that cleared the way for McDowell to squeeze his way inside the top 10, finished exactly 10th. We can just say, hey, incidents are part of the model. That's why we had him in there. So I'll take it for sure. Maybe didn't deserve it, but plus 450 for the top 10. We'll take that. Did not get the top 5 at 16-1, though, for McDowell. All-Star race coming up this weekend for NASCAR North Wilkesboro. So we'll talk about that later on this week as well. That's all that we have here for today, though, on Covering the Spread. Once again, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast, because we have a massive week on tap with PGA. We've got the Preakness, we've got NBA and NHL all coming up here on the show across the next 3 days. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating as well. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets across Major League Baseball for tonight. And we'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down the PGA Championship. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.